Summer's here. The days are long, the weather's perfect, and your time should be filled with fun, not vehicle maintenance. Thankfully, with complimentary Ford mobile service, you don't have to take time out of your day to take care of your vehicle. That's right, from oil changes with the works package to brakes, batteries, tire rotations, and more. Ford technicians can come perform expert service right in your driveway. So go ahead and stay poolside and let Ford mobile service come to you. That's ownership built around you. Contact your participating dealer or visit fordservice.com for important details and limitations.
I had been a very naughty girl. That's how he said it, with those gaps between each word. Probably couldn't concentrate on my punishment because all the blood was flowing downstairs instead of upstairs. Father McConnell. He used to spank children for what he said were, quote, disciplinary reasons. I had been spanked 10 times my first year at his school. I'd like to think that was a record. The reasons for my, quote, discipline ran the gamut. Sarcasm, that was a big one. Referring to a nun as a soul sister instead of a sister. That got me a smack in the back of the head. Wearing dirty socks. That one was totally uncalled for. It had been raining that whole morning. I stepped into a puddle while running. The whack to my hand via Sister Massey's wooden ruler was severely unjustified. There were other reasons. I can't remember all of them. I'm not trying to brag. But when you don't respect your, quote, school at all, it can be tough following their rules. I was surrounded by girls my own age, most of whom avoided me because they didn't want me to rub off on them. I couldn't agree more. How many times do I have to get spanked or whacked before someone puts 2 and 2 together? I don't want to be here. I was 16 on the verge of 17. There was only one kind of education that interested me at the time, and it involved knocking boots with the opposite gender. I tried knocking boots with my own gender once, just to see if it could help me pass the time. It didn't take. Although I certainly appreciate Molly giving it a shot with me. The straw that broke the camel's back? The one that got me my wish to get away from this hellish school once and for all? Not what you would expect. Certainly not what I expected. What got me booted was a dream. Yeah, something that didn't even happen. In art class, of all places. The one school setting that felt relatively sedated. A rare elective, and by rare I mean only. We were instructed to paint our most recent dream, and then the class would describe what they saw. I did just that. How do you get expelled for following instructions? I went last, which was not uncommon. I put my painting onto the easel and said, ta-da! Not one laugh. Not one giggle. Not even a tee-hee. Mary Lexington snorted, but I think that was because she was allergic to wood. Sister Deborah, our art teacher, picked on a student to describe what they saw. The student, Mary Romero, stood up. Yes, there were a lot of Marys in my school. Anyway, Mary Romero stood up, started to open her mouth, and then she had a seizure. Am I a fan of Mary Romero? No, but I don't wish to have her seize. Nor is it possible for my painting to make someone seize. When they brought her to the nurse, she blamed my painting, said she saw fire and brimstone and engulfing the world, opening up the gates of hell, blah, blah, blah. The assistant principal called me into her office. Sister Rose. She was a mean woman, meaner than Father O'Connell. Spankings from McConnell were clearly some depraved sexual kink. Sister Rose would hit you because she liked to see pain. Now I'm sitting there 3 feet away from her, along with my mother. We had a little chat about my painting. I explained the assignment. Sister Rose asked me to describe what I had painted. I told her that in our class, other people described the painting, not me. So maybe she should describe what I painted to help illustrate, no pun intended, what had transpired. My line of reasoning was met with a smack from my mother. The back of my head still had a little indent from the previous smack, so it's nice to know my skull was adapting to consistent physical abuse. Sister Rose stood up, meaning things were about to get serious. She would prefer speaking sitting behind her desk, which creaked and cracked as if it was wood taken off of Noah's Ark. She walked around the front of her desk and sat at the edge of it, taking off her glasses and staring down at me. And then she said,
Agatha, we both know this is not the first time your artwork has caused problems.
Oh my God, I had totally forgotten. Considerable amounts of memories you're actively trying to forget will do that to you. Assistant Principal Hardass was correct. This was not the first time my painting had caused someone to have a seizure. Roughly 5 years ago, the assignment was to draw your dream home, so I did. One of the children, for whatever reason, saw my drawing and, well, their eyes kind of rolled in the back of their head and then they started talking in tongues. Again, I was simply following instructions. Plus, it was Carla. Carla had health problems. That was definitely just bad timing. I'll tell her that, which I did not, and shockingly, she disagreed.
No, Agatha, I am not referring to Carla, although that certainly was troublesome. I am referring to Molly, your friend, Molly.
Holy crap. Molly. The one I almost went all the way with. How had I forgotten that? It wasn't even that long ago. I had volunteered to help make posters for the church fundraiser. It was the only time I've ever volunteered to help. I had never felt prouder or closer to my school. I thought it would be fun to draw a little mascot on one of our billboards. I showed it to Molly. And what happened to Molly? You didn't tell me about this. My mother was boiling. I had not told her about this. Molly, as I would explain to her now, saw my drawing and then she stopped talking. Like, forever. To be fair, Molly had issues. It's part of what made her so hot. So yes, the last thing she said was, "Can I see your drawing?" And then she just had some sort of meltdown. The next day, she was sent away to some institution. Again, this is just a freakish coincidence. 3 times is a lot. I'll give her that. But what are they insinuating? I should say that. I'll say it. What exactly are you insinuating, Sister Rose? That my artwork brings out the devil in girls? I don't know which I felt first, the head smack or the ruler walk. My body clenched in multiple directions. Perhaps it was my tone, because the actual question felt justified. Normally, I might bite my tongue and let my disciplinary actions speak for me, but if I'm going to get shipped out, I'd at least like to have it explained to me. My mother told me to apologize for my tone, so I did. I apologize, Sister Rose. I was just curious as to what you think has taken place regarding my artwork and the reaction to it. I certainly meant no ill will. She took a deep breath and exhaled through her chest and out of her nose. It was her way of saying that she did not enjoy your company. Needless to say, she did this a lot with me. My mother found this the opportune time to chime in by asking a question that could have been asked a long time ago. Her Brooklyn accent was in full force. "What are you drawing, Agatha? What is this, some kind of satanic scripture?" "It's not the same thing every time, Ma. I don't know. I just draw what's in my head." Sister Rose ended this delightful mother-daughter inquisition.
"If I may speak frankly, Mrs. Fairchild."
She was now speaking directly to my mother, as if I was not in the room.
"These drawings and paintings that your daughter creates, they are meant to serve as a window into the student's soul, a way to let them out so others can see them shine. Your daughter, however, appears to harbor a darkness. As assistant principal of the school, I cannot let her put any more of my students in danger. Therefore, it is with great remorse that I am referring you to another educational institution that may be more equipped to handle your daughter's needs."
It turns out that this was not an expulsion. This was a transfer to a school for, quote, girls like me with a penchant for punishment. Sounds hot. My first question upon hearing the news was, how big are their rulers? I wink. This leads to a spanking given by Sister Rose. This is not sexual. This is savage. My mother watches at first and then turns away. Sister Rose takes her time. Clearly, she is relishing this one last chance to administer her dominance. When it's over, I am trying to silently wipe away my tears as Sister Rose instructs us to see Sister Marie downstairs for the transfer paperwork. I am unable to sit for the next week without being in pain. I offset this physical anguish with a vision of my future, living in a facility filled with other girls that hold a similar penchant for punishment, whatever that means. I tell myself one thing over and over again that becomes my mantra. It can't get any worse. St. Augustine's in St. Louis. Double the saints. They weren't kidding about bringing extra god power into my equation. My family did not seem distressed over my transfer. My mother packed me a hearty lunch that would keep me fed for the bus ride from St. Joseph's to St. Augustine, which was about 10 hours. My father made me promise him that I could come back as a decent woman. My little sister, the only person I would miss, let a little tear flow down her face. She tried to hide it so that nobody would see her cry. It was seen as weak and melodramatic for women to cry in our family. I gave her cheek a little squeeze and then stuffed my address into her coat pocket along with the words, "If you ever need to get away, I'll be here." And then I was off to my new life, presumably to create the new me. I had snuck a book called The Snake Pit into my bag. I knew I had to read it before I arrived. It felt like a nice way to pass the time. Independent reading was frowned upon around my town, which comes as a shock to absolutely no one. I would have finished that story had I not made chit-chat with the woman next to me. She said she was a nurse in World War I. All of her sons had been killed in the war. Her husband had recently passed away from polio, so now she was all alone, which is why she was leaving town and headed for greener pastures. It's too hard being home. I see my boys everywhere. That's what she told me. I was to be picked up from the train station by Sister Lilith. She stood out in the parking lot. It was dark by the time I arrived. There were only a few other people on the bus by this point. I could see the veil. Even in the dark, through the rain, it loomed over everything else. Could not see her face. She wore a thin, tight chain face cover. The rain hit the steel and melted off. I introduced myself. Sister Lilith? Hello. I'm Agatha. She said nothing and then opened up her passenger side door. I had never seen a nun drive before. I got inside and held my bag against my stomach. She got in next and turned on her engine. That was the most conversation we exchanged. Her engine starting. The drive from the train station to the school felt endless. Anytime I assumed we had to be close, she would go further and further into darkness. Every back road had a new back road. The rain was pounding her windshield. She never wavered, never even blinked. She just drove. I could hear her breathing. Similar to Sister Rose, that lifetime of repression slithering its way out of her nose. We hit a narrow Gravely road surrounded by woods. There was just the faintest vision of the school up ahead. An archway hung above us as she pulled into the tiny parking lot. The school looked more like a tiny castle. Very short castle. Couldn't tell the length. There were high hedges on all sides, but it appeared to be just one floor. Perhaps the student body of misfit toys was not very robust. Everything was made of stone, weathered over time. Sister Lilith got out of her car and walked towards the entrance, which was being held open by another nun. This woman also had a face covering. They wore black gloves. I tried to glean an age range based off their skin, but I had no such luck. They were like chameleons in shadows. My coat was soaked. The other nun stuck out a single hand, as if to offer help. I lightly bowed my head and handed her my coat. She took it violently, snapped it twice into the air, blasting raindrops against the wall. It was then handed back to me as Sister Lilith pointed towards the stairwell. I lightly bowed again before walking over into the stairwell, but the only stairs were going down. It was even darker below. I turned backwards to see another guiding hand, but there was nobody. I was alone, so I walked down. There was a heavy steel door on the floor under me. I desperately tried to limit the squish sounds of my shoes, still very damp from the parking lot walk. I passed along a string of doors on both sides. They had very slender windows, eye level. I couldn't decide which was scarier, looking or not looking. I opted not to look. I just kept walking until finally at the end of the hall there was another open door. The room was small, dark gray walls, a narrow cot with a dark gray blanket and a pillow, tiny sink, no mirror. I put my bag down and sat, trying to soak in my surroundings. A jolt of fright shot through my chest when I noticed that Sister Lilith was standing outside my door, staring at me. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if anything should be said. Nobody had spoken all night. I started to open my mouth, but she closed the door. My new home. Three loud bangs. That was my alarm clock. I had not slept all night. I was not used to such quiet. I had no idea what time it was because there were no windows. I stood in the hallway. There were 4 other girls across from me, each standing outside their respective doors, looking down at the ground. I didn't have to worry about any awkward eye contact. I turned to my right and saw 2 more girls standing outside their doors. They followed the nun whose name I did not know yet up the stairs. As I walked in the back of them, I saw that one of the doors on this floor remained closed. I turned briefly to try and see something through the tiny slit, but there was only darkness. I could hear a tiny creak behind me. It was Sister Lilith, watching me. She seemed to glide along the floor. Even as she followed in my footsteps, I could not hear her move. We sat at one long black marble table. Nobody spoke. We just silently chewed our tiny rations of solid slop mixed with liquid slop. From here, we went to the showers, and I thought breakfast was cold. It was a room with 10 shower heads. The girls began to disrobe. I followed suit. Watching us was the unnamed nun. The unspoken no eye contact policy was becoming increasingly handy. The showers were automated, running approximately 5 minutes, which was 4 minutes too long. We dried off and then retreated to our quarters to get changed into our school wardrobe. I was used to wearing the same thing as everyone else. If you can't stand out, it's like you don't exist. Everyone merges into one androgynous entity. The whole school felt like a big eye in the sky, as if I was being watched at all times, waiting to see when I would slip up and be seen. At my last school, I was always trying to stand out. Now, I was just trying to blend in. What the hell would they be teaching us in class? I hoped that question was not literal. I followed everyone to the first floor and walked inside. There were 8 seats. The only empty ones were right in front. I sat down, trying not to make any noise. Instead of a window, there was painted glass covering the entire wall. It was a bright orange tint, as if the sun was fighting to get inside and being held back. The only differentiating markers between the nuns were the shades of gray. On top of their veils, they had what looked like outer headbands cuffed around the back of their necks. None of the gray seemed to match. Sister Lilith had a very dark gray. The other sister wore a lighter shade. Perhaps this was an indication of something. The chalkboard was empty. It was not the standard green backdrop. It was black. Goth. The room was narrow, but immaculate. I could hear something. I turned around. All 6 girls remained perfectly still. They were humming in unison. I looked at each one. This had to be some sort of prayer. If I had the faintest clue as to what it was, I would have attempted to jump in rhythm, but I was lost. They were speaking so rapidly. Finally, a voice. Agatha? I clutched my chest so hard I thought I might have broken my wrist. Someone had spoken, and it was directed at me. Standing there was a new nun. Her shade of gray was more silver. It glistened. She held out a piece of chalk and said, "Can you draw something for us?" Her voice had a raspy echo, as if someone had thrown rocks into an endless cave. This felt like a test. Everything felt like a test. The answer had to be yes. I could not even imagine the hellfire that would rain down upon me if I'd said no. But the lingering question was, what? What did they want me to draw? Would it be more polite to ask? This had to be a test, no doubt. It was dead silence. My school uniform was choking every bone in my body. I felt like an accordion being stretched beyond capacity. I reached way back into my mind, desperately searching for something that could calm me down. There was nothing. So, I did what I had always done. I drew a picture. It took up most of the chalkboard. I couldn't even tell you how long I was up there. There were no instructions, not that I expected any, so I just kept going. They wanted to see who I was and why I was here, and that's what I was going to do. In a way, I had never felt more seen, more alive. Rather than hide inside my own shadows, I was now being lifted into daylight. As the drawing became more detailed, an increasing rush of energy began to wash over my body. If I truly needed help, and this place was truly designed to help me, well then, I was going to show them everything. Don't hold back. Put myself on the cross. I looked at the chalk. It had turned to dust. My hand looked like a ghost. I didn't know what to wipe it on, so I just let it hang there in the air. The drawing was done. All I had to do now was turn around and face whatever awaited me. Stare my future in the eye, right down the barrel. The room was empty. The dark tint against the painted glass wall had shifted into something darker, blood red. The classroom door slowly swung open. Every centimeter had an extra punch of creak to it. I poked my head into the hallway. At the end of the corridor was another open door with a similar red tint illuminating the floor. I walked towards it. The space seemed to converge as I got closer, as if the walls were forming a point in the middle. I was just a couple of feet from the door when I stopped, and then very lightly poked my head inside. "Come in, Agatha." It was the raspy silver-gray sister. She was sitting in a high-back velvet chair, staring into her crackling fire. The air smelled sweet. I wonder what kind of wood she was burning to create that smell, to create that air. "Have a seat, child." There was only one place to sit. The chair directly facing her desk. A beautiful oval black marble desk with nothing on it. I was now positioned with my back towards her. In front of me, I could see a large window that peered into the woods. The branch of this oak tree was slowly swaying back and forth, as if it was swimming. I began to wonder if this wall was painted glass as well. How could the air look like that? It felt as if we were underwater, submerged deep beneath sea level. I could see past the tree. How long was I at that chalkboard? Have you ever wondered, child, where you got your eye? I couldn't tell if those cracks were the floor or her. I tried not to turn around. I tried not to breathe. Each step had the weight of a lion, slowly creeping and creaking closer as I tried to parse her question. When in doubt, repeat the question. My eye, sister? She was nearly behind me now. I could feel it. Even as the creaking went away, her presence felt right behind me. There was a cool wind that seemed to swallow the air around me. Yes, my dear. Your window to the world, filled with fire and brimstone, death and despair. Have you ever wondered why? She was almost at her seat, which looked more like a throne. I didn't know where to look. I kept staring at my hand, my left hand, still filled with ghostly chalk. No, sister, I have not. Perhaps I should, but I have never been inclined to ask such questions. She was sitting. I could hear it. There was something about this room, something about her, this place. I could feel my barriers beginning to break down. My eyes, the ones she seemed too curious about, were beginning to fill with tears. There was a surge of catharsis spilling out of me. It's as if someone had cut off my skin and asked me to bare my bones.
No, my dear child. Your inclination has gotten you here. Precisely where you ought to be.
The chalk was beginning to disappear. My tears were washing it away as they dripped down like a leaking faucet. I thank you for taking me in, sister. I want to apologize for my past behavior, which forced the church to conduct my transfer. It is with great sorrow that I have shamed my previous school. I humbly accept whatever punishment the church deems necessary. I felt a hand touch mine. It was hers, so smooth, like the ceramic bowl my grandmother had given me on my 5th birthday. I remember sliding my hands around it as I sat near the pond. Sister Gray used my hand to lift up my chin. I saw her, who she truly was. Punishment? Oh, sweet child, this is no punishment. This is a reward. You have been given a gift from the prince who lives below. He has bestowed you with a vision through his own eye, an iris which precedes us all, dawning back to the beginning of time. For too long he has laid dormant, resting comfortably, waiting proper time to rise from his slumber.
And take back what was rightfully taken from him.
The walls, like veins, the entire room seemed to dissolve into a living, breathing entity. Her eyes, her fire-breathing eyes, they lit up her chalky gray face. I could see bodies, endless bodies, floating behind her in that deep, dark ocean of blood.
Let us show the world what you see.
I wander through the shadows of a dim-lit night, where echoes of your laughter linger just out of sight. The moonlight cast reflections on the tales we told, but silence spells like secrets hidden uncontrolled. I trace the fading moments that we used to share, yet in this ghostly stillness I can feel your stare. I've got my eyes on you, even when the darkness calls my name. I hope you feel it too, even in the shadows it's the same. The stars above are weeping for love we've lost in this empty twilight, I'm counting all the cost. The whispers of the night seem to carry your song, but the notes are bittersweet and I know it feels wrong. I search for solace in the memories we made, but every step I take feels like a lonely parade. I've got my eyes on you, even when the darkness calls my name. I hope you feel it too, even in the shadows it's the same. In the silence I hear you, in the distance your voice calls my name. But in the dark I find my truth, a lingering love that feels like a flame.
Summer's here, the days are long, the weather's perfect, and your time should be filled with fun, not vehicle maintenance. Thankfully, with complimentary Ford Mobile service, you don't have to take time out of your day to take care of your vehicle. That's right, from oil changes with the Works package to brakes, batteries, tire rotations, and more. Ford technicians can come perform expert service right in your driveway. So go ahead and stay poolside and let Ford Mobile service come to you. That's ownership built around you. Contact your participating dealer or visit fordservice.com for important details and limitations.